Okay, so I'm going to be making a mini landscape using two watercolour colours. I'm going to be using a cool colour and a warm colour. The idea is that the cooler colour is going to give some kind of aerial perspective to the work. So if we look, I'll be doing one very similar to this one at the top here, just down here. And so basically it's all purple with a bit of the yellow added to it to show a difference in the mountains along here. And then looking at this bottom one here, I've got more yellow in it as I come nearer the front. So I'm going to do a bit of sort of something between the two. I'll be doing a little tip to show you how to put a moon in. And that's just using a bit of tissue paper over the size of it I've used the top of this tube of paint here. So the two colours that I'm using, but you can use any two colours you like. I'm using a ready mix purple, ultramarine violet. The reason I'm using a ready mix purple and not mixing a blue and a yellow is because I think it would be very difficult to make enough of the right colour, and you probably wouldn't be able to make the same again. And we're not actually trying to look at mixing colours, we're just looking at how colours can show distance. If we have too many colours in it, we don't get that simple effect of a simple landscape. So the first one is my ultramarine violet. That's a Winsor & Newton colour, but any ready-made purple will do. Or you could use a blue just on its own. And I'm using a Winsor lemon, just because I know we usually say a lemon yellow is a cool yellow, but a yellow is going to be warmer in general. For this, I feel, than a violet, but don't quote me on that because other people will have different ideas. So the first thing I've done is I've masked out an area on my page, just very simple grid I made that let me put 4 pictures on one page, just using the width of the tape to make the border. And so I'm going to work in this bottom one down here today to show you how I did it. So the sky, I've divided my square into roughly three areas. I've got a line along here, which is going to be, this bit here is going to be my sky. This bit from the first line to the second line is going to be my mountains, and the third area is going to be my water. So eventually it'll look sort of sky and then mountain, water sort of blending into each other. There's not a line directly in the middle. It's always good to keep your lines either above or below centre, don't go right to the middle. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put some sky down. Now I'm going to have a moon in mind, like on this one here, so I want my sky to be reasonably dark. So I'm just mixing up some of my purple. I'm not wetting the paper first, I'm just going to do a wash down the paper right down to my water line, because you can see my mountains here are purple as well. I'm going to bring that all the way down. So I'm just going to line my brush on the side, bring it down, and just keep moving across. Collect more paint if I need it, come down. Right the way down. Now it's not actually strong enough. I'm going to make it darker while my paper's still wet. Get a heavier mix of pigment. This is quite a pale purple. It doesn't go very dark, even at the best of times. So I'm going to come down again. Just bringing my paint down. Now I'm working on the flat. I suggest you do this on a slight incline, because then the paint will run down better. But I'm not going to worry too much because I want to take clouds out. I'm going to take some clouds out by using either mopping it out with a, you know how we remove stuff, so you can make a little bundle of, and you get like that. Just keep doing that. And then very quickly for my moon, just get some tissue paper, wrap it tightly over the end of the top of the tube, and just press in. Take it away and you've got a little moon shape now. You've got to do this when it's still wet. Otherwise, as you can see, like I've got a bit of a moon, but a bit of cloud. So I'm going to put a bit of cloud running across it as well, so it looks as though it was meant to be like that. And you can take some more colour out if you want to, and I might even put a bit of purple across in front of the moon, just to make it look like there's some bands of something going across it, okay? We know we can lift colour out if we need to, but obviously best if we don't. Okay, so I've got my sky done with my little moon in it, and I'm going to put some mountains on. Now again, I'm going to mix some heavy colour. Now I want this to be quite a crisp edge on the edge of my mountains. I don't mind if the other mountains sort of blend into it, so I really want that sky to dry. And I'm just going to put a random shape across it. Now I've got the pencil line still showing. The idea is probably to draw your pencil lines either side just on your masking tape, so you can see where the lines are without actually drawing them in. And I'm just going to come down and make myself some mountains, and I want the moon to be in behind the mountains. So again, I'm coming all the way down. Can you see how 2 layers of the purple, I know I've made a dark purple, but it's just gives that random moon shape, random mountain range shape, I should say. And because this is actually a granulating colour, what's really nice about it is that it actually granulates on the paper, and you get a really nice look to it. And if you're working on this is a hot press paper, but if you're working on a not hot, a rougher paper, you get some nice bits going on in there as well. So I'm going to make my mountains a little bit yellow now. So I'm going to put a mix of purple there, and I'm going to add a little bit of my lemon yellow, just to make another colour for my mountains. And while that's still wet, I'm going to come down a bit lower and put another row of mountains on. And they can be as whatever shape you want them to be. Again, getting a nice bit of granulation going on. And the moon's behind. Now the water, I'm going to leave that to dry now. Now when I do the water, I'm going to use some of the mixture of my lemon mix and some of my purple mix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it quite weak to start with. So add a bit more water to my puddle. And I'm just, with this brush, I'm just going to bring some lines across. I want my moon is here, so I want the light to be shining in a sort of pathway that the moon would show the light on the water. Doesn't make any sense at all, does it? But I think you get what I mean. I'm going to leave that area. Now I'm going to come in from both sides. If I start in the middle of my paper and come out, I'm going to probably start with a bit of a blob and it won't look quite so good. Make sure when you do these lines, you actually start on the masking tape and bring it across, because you don't want to have lots of white edges down here. Some of them can be a bit thicker lines. Some go straight across, because I want the moon to look as though it's just reflecting on the water. So I'm coming in with some of the darker colour now, my yellowy browny purple, the purple that had a bit of yellow added to it. And again, I'm just sort of brushing it very lightly on the water. Now I want to come in with a bit of heavier lines, darker paint. So they're not going to be wider lines, it's going to be a little bit darker. And I don't mind if you get a bit of wet on wet happening, where you've got some nice darker areas. Because you want for the light of the reflection to shine, you actually want to have some dark against it. As we know, the whites only look white if they're against something that's darker. I'm actually going to put another little bit of a hill in here, I think. Just coming down to the water level. You can make this up as you go along. You don't have to have anything too prescriptive. It's just whatever you want it to be. Oops. but just because we're adding layers of watercolour, the hills near us, the hills near in front are going to be darker because things further away need to be lighter. We've got our moon appearing. If we're very clever, we would have put some darker, leave some lighter area in these hills coming through. But I haven't done that. That just sort of overcomplicates things. So a bit more dark. Now I'm going to put, if you look at this one, it's got like a forest or it's got some houses. This one here's got some little buildings going on in the background. That was actually Mangawai. This is a sandbank here. We've got some friends of a batch, and it was from a photo taken from their batch. I sort of made up the foliage in front, but basically there were trees in the front here and then a bit of bushes there. So I'm going to make up a darker, to make my purple darker, I'm going to add yellow. Okay, so it makes, because purple and yellow we know makes a grey. I'm going to have to put some more colour out, I can see, but that's okay. And then I'm just going to dot, no, that's too wet. Can you see they're going a bit, it's not let it dry enough yet. I want to have some nice definite buildings or trees going on or something. But I'll let that just sink in and then I'll add some more in a bit. Still coming on with my colours. Now where's my purple paint gone, because I want some more. I want to get that darker colour. Now you can use dry brush with this as well. I'm using the paint sort of wet, but if you get a nice dry brush look to it, if you can come through and just get some nice, I've got an example of anywhere somewhere now, I haven't, but never mind. If you can, just keep a light area underneath the land where it meets the water. That's quite nice to have a light area going on there. So I've got, see how I've got that nice blob now, because I started from the middle of the page and my painting and didn't go to the edge. Come from the edge. Now there's some nice dry brush marks going on. Can you see those? They're just a little bit more broken, which gives a nice glittery effect to the water. Okay, so that's that done. I feel as I need to go a bit darker in places, but let's get a bit of foliage in here. So I'm going to put some bushes in the front here and some grasses. And this is just making marks. We're just looking at the shape of the things and making some marks. Now with this one here, if you can see, I started with these little bits in the back, then I put the yellow in, left a bit, and then I put a bit of the grey in, and then a bit, and then at the front the bigger leaves, so smaller leaves in the distance, bigger leaves and perhaps some stems and a bit more detail in the front. But I'm just going to put a bit of what shall I do in here? I'll put some grasses, I'll put a bit of tree coming down over this side. So the first thing I'm going to do is, with a fairly dark paint, so you can check it out on the side, I'm just going to come down with some branches. Just using the very tip of the paintbrush. Goodness. Put the branches in first. Whoops. This just needs a bit of practice. Just the point of your brush, if you can. But we're going to put leaves on it anyway. And then I'll have some grasses coming up here. Now again, I'm going from the bottom of my page. I'm definitely going over. Can you see I'm putting paint on the masking tape so that it actually they all start in the same place. So when I take my masking tape off, they all look as though they're coming from the same point. I'm going to add a bit of dark and a bit of browny stuff to this as well, just to give it a bit of contrast in the front, a bit more colour in the front. Things in the distance have less colour in them, so we want more colour, more saturation of colour in the front. So you may need to let these dry before you put more on, but it's not really going to matter. But do layers getting darker and darker, because what will happen is those lighter layers of grasses in that you put down first will look further away. They'll look. And remember, they all go from different directions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of sort of seed heads on these. So they look a bit bigger. And there's something a bit different. So I've just got a very point. I'm using the same brush the whole way through. I haven't changed my brush. I'm not doing the normal two brush method that I do, because this is only a sketch after all. I want to have some definite stems coming from these, and I can see now I've got them too regularly apart. They're too too much of a, so I just want to have some other ones going on, some smaller ones in the background perhaps. But you just play around with the effect that you want. And remember, bigger things are in the front, smaller things behind. Now I'm going to add a bit of purple to the edge of some of these, because I just want them to look as though they're catching the light a bit. But it's run into the yellow anyway, so it hasn't really given the effect, but that's okay, that's okay. Right, now for these trees up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some colour. I'm going to get some some paley, dull, sort of pale colour, because any colour that we put on will actually work as, it'll go darker because we're adding 2 layers on, because we added layers. Now, to make the shapes of the brushes, of the leaves, I'm just going to literally just touch my brush down like that. So this is a bit more careful, it's not quite so random. Just press down. And the harder you press, the bigger leaf you get. You might need to come in from the back as well. You won't necessarily. I mean, I would. If I was doing this without filming it, I would be turning my paper around, so I could. Have some coming down. I'm using quite thick paint here. I'm going to move my palette out the way a minute, because I just want to be able to get to this top edge here, because I want to put some looking as though they're coming down in front. And then you can just add some branches to them, because we've got to join up somehow to a branch. So it's almost like a folky type of paint, folk art really. Let some of the brown come into it as well if you can, or the grey colour, whatever your second colour is. Bring some of that in as well. It just makes it look a bit more natural. I mean, it's not natural because it's purple and yellow, but you know what I mean. Sort of putting the leaves down in time with, I can hear the clock ticking, and I'm sort of doing leaf, leaf. Whoop, that's a bit of a funny one. Don't worry if they don't all turn out perfectly. They're going to look more natural if they're just a bit, random in places. Oops, can't get that one. Because they will all sort of, once you've got a load of them on, they will all work together, they'll be fine. What I'm going to do is just, with some of them, I'm just going to put a little mid vein in some of them. Just very gently put it in. It will blend with the colour probably, but that doesn't matter. Just give it a bit of, and the things that don't look as though they're joining up, I'm just going to give them a little stem. So if you're not sure how to do the leaves, just practice on some rough paper beforehand and just get them coming out at a nice, but obviously keep it fairly sort of random. And then you might want to go back in with some lighter colour afterwards and just do that, just put some paler ones in at the back. So just the last bit I'm going to do is just put some buildings in here. Now you could be very clever if you have if you've still got your masking fluid, you could actually put little dots of masking fluid along here before you start, and that could just work out as little lights in the buildings when you finish putting the darker paint on top. So I've just got a little bit of a, no, I want to go darker. Let me just go a little bit darker. Don't want to go too yellow though, because it looks a bit of a mucky colour. So just get some blocky shapes in that look like buildings, and then on the other side here you could have some little trees, some tree shapes, so more organic shapes that look like more like a forest or something. Now because I've gone really dark there, I'm going to have to come in a lot darker here now. So it's all, when you get to this stage, it's all a question of working out where you need to go darker, where you need to go lighter. And there you go. I'll just pull the tape off now. Obviously let that dry, but I'm going to pull the tape off. And you get that nice edge. And the chances are you can use that tape again, because I've reused my tape a few times. And they would look lovely on the front of a little card. Cut them out, put them on the front of a card, or put them in a little frame. There you go. One finished landscape.